You did good. Man, it's so easy to remember all the things you've done wrong. First time I spanked my son, he didn't need to be spanked. It was just like, I need to set the rules, I need to let him know. And broke his heart, and then it broke mine because I was wrong. It was like, this is not the way I wanted that to work, You did right. Okay. So, we're going to talk about Nick Stenay and his work, and we're going to talk about John Gottman and his work, both of whom did work on, Gottman is work on marriage. Stenay is work on families. And I understand we're talking about children who have left home. I understand that, but just work with me a little bit here. The principles that we find with Stenay and Gottman are relational principles. So even though both of them were talking about subject matters beyond or other than what we're talking about, they're relational principles. And they can be applied in multiple relationships, not just Gottman marriage and Stenay families. You with me? Okay. So let's run through these real quick. Nick Stenay began his work at York College in Nebraska. He is our brother. And Stenay has been doing research for decades. He's now retired. And Dan, he retired from the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Okay. And that's the only plug I'm going to give for him because I really don't like him. And but Stenay retired from the University of Alabama. There's been a number of protégés who have picked up on his work and continued his work. Who they are matters to their mother. But the point is, I know it's 8:15, but thank you. Thank you for getting that joke. I appreciate that so much. But the thing is, what Stenay was looking for was this. We pretty much know what doesn't work for families. It doesn't take long for us to figure that out. What we want to know, he says, is what works for families. What are the key principles? What are the key traits of families that he called strong families? It's called the family strength model. And he said, he started interviewing hundreds, and now it's thousands of families, because this research continues. It didn't stop with Stenay's retirement. And thousands upon thousands of families have been interviewed to find out what are the principles, what are the traits that designate you as a strong family. And I've listed for you those 6 traits. I'm going to go through them very, very quickly, okay? Very, very quickly. Number 1, appreciation and affection. Strong families give verbal appreciation, admiration, respect. They talk it. They don't just act like it, they talk it. Thank you for taking out the trash. Thank you for putting gasoline in my car. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you is quickly. And affection can be done in a number of ways. I love you, kiss, hug. All of those make sense to us. But sometimes the affection is none of those. Families are kind of like spices. There are certain spices that taste better on some foods than other foods. But nobody's going... We love okra, my wife and I. We love it roasted. And we use cumin. No. Well, for us, it's good. Cumin's got a kind of a smoky flavor. It's really good. We like it. But you wouldn't put cumin on things you don't want to taste smoky. But when she makes okra, or I make okra, we share cooking responsibilities at our house. If she makes okra, I make okra, and we put the cumin on, it has its own flavor. Affection's kind of like a spice. There are certain ways, I love you is, maybe like the salt, and the hug and the kiss is some other kind of spice. But all those different ways of showing affection matter. Sometimes it's just a pat on the back, and I really appreciate you. That's affection. All right? So, strong families, appreciation and affection. Number 2, strong families have a strong commitment to each other. They are deeply committed to promoting family. Deeply committed to promoting family. In fact, they're so committed to promoting family that they'll discard something else just to make sure family wins. I give the illustration this way. Some people like to play golf, for instance. Dad likes to play golf. But Dad gives up golf because it interferes with family. They're so committed to family, they'll give up something in order to make sure family wins. Because family's number 1. Number 3, strong families enjoy time together. Enjoy time together. One of the things that Stenay found in all of his research was that what families did to spend time together carried primarily three characteristics. Number 1, they were outdoor. That doesn't mean game night's not good, but he found kids love the outdoor stuff, not the indoor stuff. And I know we're talking to Gen Z folks, and you got some Gen Z folks at your house, but outdoor. He found outdoor. Number 2, you didn't have to spend a whole lot of money. He found that the activities that families really enjoyed were inexpensive. Outdoor, inexpensive. Sounds like camping. And Stenay lists camping as one of the great family activities. Number 3, they're intentional about making memories. They love to spend time together with the intent of making memories. This is good. I can remember my mother, who is 84 years old with Alzheimer's. I can remember my mother sliding into third base. We were playing 2-on-2. Dad and my older brother against Mom and me. 2-on-2 on a regulation softball field. Right field was dead. If you hit it to right field, you were automatically out. You had a pitcher and the person who just ran constantly getting the ball. And I can remember my mom, I was probably 9 or 10 years old, sliding into third base. Beautiful slide. Came up, had this huge strawberry right here on her knee. And her first words were, I was to bat next. She'd hit a triple, right? I was to bat next. And she pops up, claps her hands, and says, "Bring me in, Dana. Bring me in. Bring me in." Blood running down her knee. And bring me in. I have this vivid memory of it. And it's like, man. And Mom and Dad took a Saturday afternoon and we went and played 2-on-2 softball. Oh, great memory. No money. Just fun. Intentional. Stenay found that's what makes families strong. They want to spend some time together. Listen, your kids may have left home. They still, believe it or not, want to spend some time with you. You can follow those same principles. One child in Minnesota, one child in Michigan. We get together as a family once a year. And we do the big meal thing. And we'll have several days together. They've all promised, as long as we can do this, we'll come down and we'll spend a week with you. And it's usually a week or so before Christmas. And we'll spend the whole week with you. And we'll do the big meal. Every meal is a big meal. Yeah, you got a whole year's of meals stored up. So every meal is a big meal. And what do we do afterwards? We go outside and play. Now, it's really funny to watch me and my wife run, but it's more fun to watch me run. But she's really good. But we go outside and play. And we go on walks. And we talk. We're still doing the same principle. Intentional memories. Inexpensive outdoor. Number 4. Stenay said, Strong families know how to manage stress and crisis effectively. What's today found is, here's what happens with all families. There are challenges that come, and when the challenges come, the families have to decide how they're going to deal with those. And the strong families have really strong coping mechanisms. They're able to deal with those. What's today found is, there's two things that happen. Under challenge, families constrict. In other words, they pull together in order to kind of put up the defenses in the challenge. Dad gets sick, loses his job. Mom gets sick, has cancer. They pull together. And in pulling together, they insulate. They insulate the protection. But here's the second part. They also reach out at the same time to find support from other people. Here's what most families do. They pull together, insulate, and then they isolate. And when they isolate, they don't get the support. Stene said the strong families know they need help. They know it. They're willing to admit it. I've been to AA meetings by invitation. For a number of years, I did alcohol and drug work as a counselor. And so I've been to AA meetings, sat with clients, sat with people that I've known, and I've sat through the. You know what they do? You know what they all do, right? I don't know if you've been to AA. Don't say if you have, okay? Because it's anonymous. But if you've been to an AA meeting, then you know this. Hi, my name's Dana, and I'm an alcoholic. The confession of the reality is where they find the support. You don't have people standing up and going, hi, my name's Dana, I don't have any trouble. I had a student several years ago who told me they had one family rule. Dry up your tears, put a smile on your face before you walk into the church building. Wow. I tell my students, I laugh, I say, more people lie on Sunday morning than any other day of the week. Because they won't tell you the truth. Families pull together, insulate, and if they isolate, they have more problems. Number 5, strong families have a sense of spiritual well-being. Stene was looking at a variety of things, not only church attendance or synagogue attendance or temple attendance. He was looking also at a positive spirit, a positive outlook on life. And what he found was strong families have a basically optimistic spirit. And families do have personalities. We don't have time to go through all of that. But families do have personalities. And family personality that's optimistic tends to be a strong family. Number 6. This was the big one. This was the one that Stene said mattered most of all. Positive communication. Positive communication. You know, it's real easy to be negative. You can find all the negative and point it out. Barbara and I have been married 41 years. We have perfected pointing out the negative. We've perfected it. It's real easy. What's really hard is being able to be positively in your communication. It goes back to appreciation and affection. Talking to family members with a positive voice, not a negative voice. All 6 of those principles, all 6 of those traits can be applied to your family even though your kids are not at home. If you start working on 1 or 2 of those, how can I express greater appreciation to my own children? No, they're not doing what I want them to do. No, they're not where I want them to be. No, their faith isn't what I would hope that it would be. But can you find some way to still express appreciation for them? And in this day and time, electronically, text, email, whatever it is, FaceTime, Skype, whatever it is, go do it. You can do those kind of things, and it can make a difference. And you say, well, there's a history there. Yeah, but history doesn't predict the future. History is just history. We do repeat history if we don't learn the lessons from history. That is true. But you're learning the lessons. As I say to my clients sometimes, they tell me what's not working, and they're going to try something new. And they come back and they say, it didn't work, so I'm going to try it again. And I look at them and I'll say, really? It didn't work the first time, but you want to try it again? Yeah, I didn't try hard enough. Go try it again. And after a time, you finally realize, doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result is just kind of like chasing your tail. Do something different. Try something different. All right, now let's move on to Gottman. Gottman says, John Gottman, have any of y'all heard the name John Gottman? A few of you? Great. Gottman's been around for 50 plus years doing research on marriage. There's so much I could tell you about Gottman. Gottman is fascinating. But here's what Gottman says, amongst a bunch of other things, what I'm trying to apply to tonight. Gottman talks about what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Sounds very biblical. 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And Gottman says there are four things that will absolutely destroy a marriage. 4 things. We're going to go through 2 of them more specifically than the 2 others. But again, these can be applied beyond marriage. They're relational principles. Number 1, he says, the thing that will destroy a marriage is criticism. Criticism. You know what criticism is, right? Do I need to define it for you? Or do you know it already? He says when couples are engaged in criticism, it automatically puts both of them on the defensive. Now, one's on the offensive because they're making the critical remark. But guess what happens to the person who's receiving that critical remark? Tell me. They push back, which then makes the original person now defensive. Criticism just draws up these boundaries, these walls. And Gottman says couples who engage in lots of criticism, and by lots of criticism, Gottman is fascinating. He can watch a couple talk to each other and within 2 minutes tell you whether or not they have a good marriage. 2 minutes of talk. And he's right 96% of the time. He's done studies on himself, by the way. That's how he knows. I'm going to watch this and see if I'm right. 96% of the time he's right. Watching couples talk, and he finds criticism drives people apart. Do you think that might happen with your own children? If you're critical of your children, do you think they might kind of feel defensive? Driven apart? The second one he calls contempt. Contempt is the big one. Contempt is the big one. And I don't hate to say it, I'm just going to report it. I get no jollies out of saying it. Women do this more than men. Gottman says it's clearly more of a woman's thing than it is a man's thing. And he says, here's the sign of contentment. Are you watching me? Are you watching me? Watch me. Watch me. Here's the sign of contentment. And he says, women do it more than men. Maybe it's from the criticism. There you go. Maybe so. But it's that sigh with the rolling of the eyes. My daughter used to do that, and I would quote Proverbs to her. You know what it says in Proverbs about the rolling of the eyes? Go find out. And so it says the vultures will come and eat your eyes. And she would do the rolling eye thing, and I said, vultures will come. And you lie, Dad, you lie. Then he talks about defensiveness, and he talks about stonewalling. Both of those are important, but I'm really focusing on the first 2, criticism and contempt. If you are critical with your kids, walls get built. If you're contemptuous of your kids, the heavy sigh, the rolling of the eyes, the message that comes across of, how could you be, thank you, so stupid? How could you be so foolish? That kind of message drives a wedge. I'm not here to tell you what you're doing wrong. I'm here to try to say, look, there's ways that you can make a difference with your kids that are gone. And part of that is that appreciation and affection and the positive communication and trying to have fun together and being committed to family and go down the line. Do those things and let's see if we can build this bridge between us and our kids. I'll go back to the question. Have you had conversations with your kids? Do they know what you really think? In most cases, the answer is yes. Do they know what you believe? Yes. Do you think telling them one more time is going to make any difference at this point? If the answer is no, then I say, let's try something else. Let's try a new approach. You don't have to agree with me, but I would just keep saying, well, how's it working for you? How's it working for you what you're doing right now? Is it really helping? So when we start talking about criticism, contempt, and all those other things, then we remember, hey, there's a way to do this so that we open up lines of communication, open up and start building a bridge between us and our kids so that we can have that relationship that we really desire. Okay. I got two Bible passages, and I probably only have time for one, but let's do this one. Turn to Matthew chapter 20. I really love Luke 7. In fact, Luke 7 is one of my favorite passages in all of the Bible. Oh, let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke 7, okay? Let's go to Luke 7. Because, it's just so good. It's just so good. You know the story. I don't have to retell the story to you. But Jesus is at the house of a Pharisee, and he's having dinner. And this woman comes in and anoints his feet. You know this story? Shake your head, yes. You can read it later and confirm it. Okay. But that's what's happening. By the way, this was very common in the days of Jesus when dignitaries and important figures would be in town. Many times the town leaders would invite them to dinner. And then they would literally open up the door and people in the community could come in and listen to the conversation. This was quite common. They can't eat, but they can be entertained. Okay? They can't get they can get the show without the food, right? And so this is very common. And so when this woman comes in, it's not like she's uninvited. The doors are open so that people can come in and listen to the conversation. It's just Simon is caught off guard that this kind of woman would come in. After all, he's a dignitary. He's kind of a religious leader. He's kind of a big guy in the community. He's kind of the guy who everybody looks at and goes, close to God. And he's just surprised by the appearance of this woman. Now, we can focus the story in multiple ways. Let's just all admit, first of all, we're not Jesus in the story. Let's just admit that. Let me tell you why I'm not Jesus in this story. I think I would be uncomfortable. She starts crying on my feet, wiping her feet with her hair, and pouring this perfume all over me. I'm probably going to be looking, going, now's not the time. I'm a little uncomfortable with this. So I'm not Jesus in this story. I don't know about you, but let's just start and say we're not Jesus in this story. That leaves us two characters, either the woman or Simon. This is the reason it's so convicting to me. When I read Scripture, I put myself into the story, and I try to decide, which character am I? Which person am I in this story? It's the reason I love this story. Because there's been times in my life I was not the woman. Too many times I've been Simon with my kids. It's not an indictment about you. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about you. I'm telling you that in my own life, there are times I'm the Simon. you not thinking? Did you not think that through? Are you really sure you want to do that? I'm the Simon. What does Jesus ask Simon? Well, he tells him a story, right? He tells him a story. Two men owed money, 550. Neither of them could pay it back. Who loves him more? And Simon replies, the one who had the bigger debt. And Jesus says, you've judged correctly. I would contend with you that Jesus' response of you judged correctly is not approval of Simon's answer. It's, Simon, given who you are, you've answered correctly. You've answered within your understanding. Start with the story. 550. One owes 500, the other 50. What do they have in common? Neither could pay. If the guy with 50 can't pay, do you think he feels richer than the guy with 500? Think about it. There was a time in my life where I could not afford a $50 bill. Something unexpected, something unusual, car breaks down. We thought our son was going to be, his middle name was going to be Visa. That was the only way we could afford him, We didn't have insurance. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford maternity. Back then, it's different now, but back then, if you wanted maternity, you had to buy it 3 years in advance. We couldn't afford the maternity rider for 3 years in advance. So we just determined we would name him Spencer Visa Baldwin. That's what we were going to name him. Listen, there have been times, if you can't afford $50, it doesn't mean a whole lot for you to say, I can't afford $500. The $50 guy's going, that's not a problem. Can you afford $50? Loan it to me. They both couldn't afford it. What did both of them need? Grace. Both of them needed grace. Simon, both of them are forgiven. Which one loves God more? Oh, the $500 guy. Well, that's the way you think. Listen to the way Jesus describes it. Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You didn't give me water for my feet. She wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't give me a kiss. But this woman, from the time I entered, has not stopped kissing my feet. I tell you, I'm not Jesus. Kissing my feet continually? No, I'm not Jesus. You didn't put oil on my head. She's poured this perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, for she loved much. Guess what he just said? What did he say? Who loved most? The $50 woman. Simon, you're thinking like the $500 man. I'm telling you, the $50 woman loved more. And Simon, remember what he said at the very beginning? If he knew who this was, he can't be. He can't be who he claims to be. The difference between the 500 and the 50 person is not that only could neither one pay, both needed grace, but in this case, the lesser person recognized the depth of their poverty. There was a time where $50 was a lot of money to me. I mean, a lot of money. And if you'd spoken to me about 500, I would just thought, pfft. I could remember thinking, the day that I make $30,000 a year, I got it. I got it made. And when you're making 10, you think, triple it, and I've got it. It's easy street then. But at 10, you couldn't afford a broken car. And when your car breaks down, when you're only making $10,000 a year, and a guy walks up and he says, I understand you just had a baby. Yeah. What'd you name him? Oh, we were going to name him Visa, but his name is Spencer Thomas. How much do you owe? A lot of money. Take this check. Go pay your debt. You never forget that. You never forget it. It's one of the reasons I've been at Park Avenue for 40 years. They pay for my baby. Who loves more? Which character are you? If you want to connect with your kids, be the harlot. Be the one who really understands there was a time I couldn't, but Jesus showed me how I could. Be that person. Right? Does that make sense? Be that person with your child. Let them see grace from you. Can we go to Matthew 20 real quick? I know time's getting short, and I appreciate so much. You know, you've worked all day, and you come in here, and I know it's hard on you. So let's look very quickly at Matthew chapter 20, beginning in verses 20 through 28. This is such a great story. You know this story too, where James and John come to Jesus and ask him, you know, can we be on your right and left? Except Matthew's account tells us it's not them who's asking, right? Who's asking? The first biblical mama boys, right? The first biblical mama boy. Here are these two fishermen. Do you know what fishermen did? You know, they fished at night. They typically fished naked. But these are strong, healthy specimens of human beings. They got muscles on top of muscles. They are ripped. They are strong. And they go, Mom, you ask him. Mama boys. And they go to Jesus. She comes to Jesus and says, hey, when you come into your kingdom, we know you're going to rule, but I would take it as a personal favor if you would make sure one son's on your right and one son's on your left. It doesn't matter. Just choose. Just as long as they get to be the closest to you, which means they would be second in command. So number one, think this way. She's thinking hierarchy. There's a guy at the top, and then there's the president, then two vice presidents, and then the other 10, they can fend for themselves. Let's just make sure my boys get the vice president selections. Hierarchy. And Jesus has this discussion about, can you drink the cup and all that. We don't have time to unpack all that. The one that gets us going is verse 24. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Indignant is a really nice way of saying they were super ticked. They were over the moon ticked with James and John. And I suspect they were ticked for two reasons. Number one, we didn't get in line first. Number two, I think Peter's probably thinking, me and Andrew were first. Me and Andrew were first. We probably ought to get the VP positions. It's also a nice way of saying they were indignant with the two brothers. They're arguing. They're not just seething. It's all coming out. You have this? You have this? Little, sometimes little arguments that turn into big ones. You know, it starts off as a unintentional, no intent behind it to be critical or contemptuous or anything, but the kid hears it that way. And before long, it's just, you're just at each other. Okay, it's just our family. And this is going on. Jesus called them together. The simplicity of Scripture, and yet how filled it is. Jesus called them together. Boys, come here. I got something I need to talk to you about. You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Now, I want you to know this phrase, exercise authority over them, is carries with it a certain image. And I'm translating the image into modern times because the image that's there really doesn't make, but it's the image of forcing the other person through physical means. So let me give it to you. When I have an older brother, when we were growing up, if he wanted me to do something that I didn't want to do, he would usually take one arm, usually my right one, dominant one, and he would take my right arm and twist it, put it up behind my back, and pull. I love my brother. I love him. But that's exercise authority. You know, you put enough pressure, that joint gives. And I can remember as a kid jumping around like, that kind of thing, jumping around, begging him to stop while he's twisting and holding and saying, you going to do it? You going to do it? That's exercise authority. You with me? What does Jesus say? You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them and their high officials exercise authority. Who's the Gentiles? Rome. The people who are occupying Jerusalem. Rome. What's Jesus saying? You're thinking like a bunch of Gentiles. You're thinking just like the people that you're enslaved to. Not so with you. May know. Greek. May know. Those two words carry just huge significance because they come at the very beginning of that sentence. It signifies that Jesus is shouting. He is not having a calm conversation. Boys, come here. Got something I need to talk to you about. You're thinking like a bunch of Romans, like a bunch of Gentiles. Stop it. Stop it now. Here's what I want you to think like. Whoever wants to become great must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first must be the slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. What is Jesus saying? He is telling them, you got to change the way you think. You got to change the way you think. You have one concept, and it's about a hierarchy. Who's in charge? He said, in my kingdom, we don't look at it hierarchy. That's not how it works. In God's kingdom, we think about the bottom, not the top. We think about serving. We think about the slave. You got kids who aren't in agreement with you in faith, kids who are not in agreement with you in terms of respect. Got to flip it over. I know you're the parent, but flip it over. How can I serve them? How can I be last? That takes a very different mindset. Sometimes it means, biting your tongue. Sometimes it means just thinking differently. Let me show you one last thing. Just as the Son of Man, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. In other words, Jesus says to his disciples, I want to show you, I'm going to show you what this service looks like, what this upside down thinking looks like. I'm going to show it to you. Watch me die. Watch me die. And now you'll understand. That's what service looks like. If anybody came and deserved to be served, we're parents. I want my children to serve me in some way, but I also want them to understand from the heart of grace, from the heart of mercy, come, let us discuss together. Come, let us have a discussion. Let us talk. And let me show you. Watch me serve you. Watch me be the servant. My kids will take advantage of me. Probably. Probably. Didn't they do that with Jesus? Didn't they? Don't think like a Roman. Don't think like a Gentile. Think like God. Think like how God thinks. Servant. Tomorrow, have 2 sessions. We'll also have a breakout tomorrow as well. But tomorrow morning, the first session, we're going to talk about this generational differences primarily between the iGen and the Gen Z group, or the Gen X group. And then we're also going to spend some time just reflecting, in the first thing in the morning, reflecting particularly on how we find our identity, how we discover who we really are. We're going to talk about parenting styles, because those parenting styles start early. Then the second session is what I call the practical session. This is where we get down to the nitty-gritty of, okay, so what do I do? What do I do? How do I do this with my kids? And that's going to be the second session. I promise you it will be very practical. If you've looked at the handout and the notes, I've given you the list. This is practical stuff, and I'm going to elaborate on all of that so you're not surprised by it. But that's what's coming tomorrow on the second session, and we'll finish up there. So I'm supposed to take questions, and we've got about 10 minutes. I don't want to. I have no intent of keeping you to 9 o'clock just for the sake of 9 o'clock. But if there's a question, ask it and let me help me understand what I could say differently or in some way to clarify stuff. I have never communicated that well in my life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When people are under pressure, families, they draw together, but they also reach out to find support. Okay? So the strong families understand the importance of building the wall to insulate temporarily, because you got to stay together as a family, not fall apart. But they also understand that they can't do this by themselves. They need some support. And that means they reach out in order to talk to people, friends, other family members, who will then lend them the support that they need to deal with the protection part. To put it another way, when families are insulating, they have to put all the resources to protection in the challenge. Let me walk you through that. Let's say mom develops cancer, and while she's going to be well, praise the Lord, while she's going to be well, eventually it's going to be a long road. For that time, the family has to protect themselves. They've got to protect mom. They got to make sure that mom's not only being taken care of, but other people are being, because mom had heavy load in taking care of the family. And now she can't do that. So the family has to pull together in order to insulate, protect, to make sure all of mom's stuff is taken care of as well as taking care of mom. But the reality is mom had such a heavy load. It could be mom, it could be dad, it could be a child. But everybody had such a heavy load that they need support on the outside. Can I tell you one thing? Did you know? I should just leave that alone. I just keep talking. And so what they need to do is reach out. They need to reach out. And for many families, especially as I'm talking to you, that reaching out is within your church family. It's within maybe it's your blood family, but I tell people at Park Avenue, we're just a bunch of orphans. We really don't have any families that are connected by blood. We really don't. And most of the families that are members at Park are families who have come to Memphis over the years, and they really don't. We're just a bunch of orphans who decided to form a family. And man, there's just so much that's going on. As families hurt, they reach out for the support. That's what that is. What else? Let me pray with you. We live in a world, Father, where you know that the hierarchy exists. It's always existed. And in some measure it must. But we live in a world where we're pushed to think that way too. We live in a world where we compare ourselves, and in that comparison thinking, we find ourselves lacking. We also find ourselves hard-pressed not to win. We want to win. So, Father, when it comes to our families, we want our family to win. And if that means, and it does, for us to be servants, help our hearts to be molded to be just like Jesus, who showed us what service looks like. And because of Him and through Him, we pray. Amen.